Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight. We are speaking again for the third night in a row with Tony Brady, father of Aaron Brady. Aaron was convicted of the murder of Garda Adrian Donohoe, who was shot and killed back on the 25th of January 2013. And Aaron was found guilty on the 12th of August 2020. Aaron's appeal started in October last year, October 2023, and to this date, the Brady family are still waiting on a judgment from that appeal. So let me know if you can hear me, please, in the comments, and if you can give it a share, I'd appreciate it. This is the third one of these interviews we've done. The first night, we spoke to Tony about the stolen car that was used in the robbery and the murder, which was stolen. The car was stolen from Clara Head. We also spoke about the murder scene as well on Tuesday night. That was part one. It's available. You'll probably see in the description if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. You'll see a link to that if you'd like to go and watch it again. Thanks very much, everybody, in the comments. And last night we spoke about the burn site where, after the robbery, where the car was burnt out. And we also spoke about this gang that the DPP and the prosecution invented, which included Aaron, obviously. Now, let me bring Tony up on screen here. Are you there? Well, Tony, how are you?
Good evening, Stephen. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Just very, very briefly there, I suppose. The first night, Tuesday, we spoke about the stolen car and also the robbery. Do you want to, just for anyone who's joining late, who hasn't seen them, obviously, hopefully they'll go back and they'll look at those presentations. But the main points, if you could summarize them very briefly. I know there's no evidence in my mind, in my opinion, looking at what you spoke about the last night. Also, having attended some of the days of the trial, I cannot see what evidence they relied on to jail your son for 40 years. But anyway, maybe just give us a little recap on what we spoke about on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Starting off with Tuesday about the stolen car and the murder scene.
Yeah, the stolen car, and funny, it's amazing how this gets into the psyche of people. Just because the vehicle was burnt out deep in South Armagh, and An Garda Siochana linked that to the murder scene. And it's actually, you actually said it there, that the car used at the Morton robbery was stolen on Tuesday night, on Wednesday night, 48 hours before the Morton robbery. We are saying it was allegedly used in the Morton robbery on the Friday night and then burned out in down deep in South Armagh. But the actual facts and the details are far from that. The only two people who actually seen the vehicle on the night of the Morton robbery was Detective Joe Ryan, as he drew his weapon, and he made a decision not to fire on the gun on the getaway car as it left the scene. He told base via radio or via phone that the vehicle was grey. The lady sitting in front of the vehicle, a car blocked the entrance. I think most of the people would have seen that. And the lady sitting that was on the way out of that exit when it was blocked was looking at the car for 50 seconds and 58, 59 seconds. And she said the car was silver or grey. So I suppose the crux of the matter on the Tuesday night, we spoke about this robbery of this blue Passat. The vehicle stolen on Tuesday night was blue, and we are saying that the vehicle actually used in the Morton robbery at Lordship Credit Union was grey or silver. That's the first serious anomaly and point of fact. This story was created by the DPP, and we also have to look at the longevity and the time taken for this investigation. All the information gathered that was presented during the course of Aaron's trial in 2019 into 2020, most of the data was collected, CCTV footage and data was collected in the days and weeks immediately following the Morton robbery. So we went through in some detail the circumstantial evidence from the robbery of the vehicle on the Wednesday night. And as we've seen, the circumstantial evidence was CCTV footage drawn from certain points. And the inference drawn from that was that this vehicle was stolen by Aaron Brady and James Flynn. And the DPP and An Garda Siochana tried to create a storyline of the movement of James Flynn's car, and we broke that down between points A, B, between 1 and 7, between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 6, 6 and 7, and we showed that each and every one of those points where CCTV footage was harvested from, there were serious discrepancies and problems with the quality of the CCTV footage, and the times were either ludicrous or impossible. 7 minutes for a 1 kilometre journey, 6 minutes for a journey between Monaghan Boyce and Termafeck and Credit Union, which we say quite categorically has been proven to be impossible. So the whole story created to bring this blue Passat into the narrative created by the state is a tissue lace, and it's completely fictitious. And I suppose I'll say again, we have a lot of other little bits of information, snippets of information about the blue Passat actually going into another town in County Louth in Dunlea. There was tampering with the CCTV footage of a BMW seen in Dromiskin, another village quite close to where the car was stolen. So there's a whole lot of other issues, and like any of these podcasts I've done with Stephen, I could do 2 hours every night, I'd say, for the next 3 weeks easily. So I am trying to condense it, but I hope we've shown that on the theft of the car is a fallacy to try and relate it to the Morton robbery. We then showed the Burnside is a complete and utter farce. It's a complete farcical story that is simply unbelievable. The basis of it is that these young men from close here in South Armagh, where we live, would have driven 33 kilometres into a predominantly Protestant area and one of the most highly policed stations in Newtown Hamilton in County Armagh, to suggest that after an armed robbery you would head in that direction is complete nonsense. It simply wouldn't happen. Notwithstanding that, the evidence, again, put forward in the DPP storyboard, again, we had CCTV footage, and some of the footage was viewed by an expert, Mr. Waller, and we highlighted last night that a vehicle at Curtamlet School, and this is down near the Burnside, a little primary school, and CCTV footage harvested from there. When this specialist looked at it, was known as the blind analysis. He was just given the raw footage initially. He said that the first vehicle passing the school was an SUV. But by the time it came to court and there was the prosecution was putting a case against Aaron, that SUV had turned into a Volkswagen Passat. When the Volkswagen Passat, the vehicle, and we do believe it's a Volkswagen Passat that left the scene of the Morton robbery, we could see quite clearly the number plate light was on. When it got to this little school in Court Hamlet, there was no number plate light, or the number plate was placed in a different position where you would be likely to find the number plate on a Volkswagen Passat. So some vehicles is just in under the boot, and that would be the case with the Volkswagen Passat. But other vehicles would have as people will know, will have the low number plate down near where the tow bar is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is possibly... so it's not the same car. It's just they just took a whole higgledy-piggledy of lots of sightings in different cars and tried to create a chain reaction. But none of those chain reactions actually relate to each other, and the times are totally incorrect. The main point at the actual burn site, they brought a man in who seen one vehicle. So if there was any validity to the DPP storyboard, the eyewitness would have seen two vehicles. The Passat would have went up to be burned, and obviously the BMW would have had to be behind that to take those driving the Passat away. Mm-hmm. But only one vehicle went up this little boreen. And because the times are so close in CCTV footage, there would be no opportunity for that car to have got past the farmer, because we've been in the yard. I've done live broadcasts from there, and he's only 4 to 5 yards from the road in his yard where he was walking that night. And Tony Hunt, Judge Tony Hunt, during the course of James Flynn and Brendan Trainor's trial, said he mentioned the paucity of traffic on this road, meaning that there'll be very, very little traffic. So if this farmer seen two vehicles, he would certainly have noticed it. And he was close enough to know that the BMW he seen had very, very loud noise, very, very loud. He actually stated that he believed there was something fitted to this car to make it sound louder, and that the BMW had bright blue neon lights. James Flynn had neither of those things. James Flynn's BMW had a factory fitted silencer, and he had normal standard white lights. So the whole burn site, and then the caveat for it all is they brought in a second witness who seen two vehicles at 10:30. So the gentleman I've just spoke about who seen the vehicle at 10 p.m. and just round the corner from his house, about 800 yards, the vehicle was burned out. And if there was any truth to the story, this vehicle was burned out. But then they bring someone else in at 10:30, and they try to suggest that this is James Flynn and Aaron Brady again. But when looked into, it means that they're bringing in a witness who said he's seen a vehicle at 10:30 that was on fire at 10:15.
Yeah, obviously.
So, it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And I think I explained sort of briefly last night, the reason they've done that is because of the serious issue. The farmer only seen one vehicle. They brought in this delivery driver who was in his own private car, seen two, and they sort of meshed the two together and created a narrative and a story that those sort of two cars went towards the burn site.
Let's try to confuse the jury.
Yes, and it did. Obviously it did. Obviously it did. And I would say once again, people will ask how this, maybe new people watching it, how did this get past the Aaron's defence team? A lot of this information I had given to Aaron's initial legal team solicitors, but we found out later on that they weren't really given this information correctly to Aaron's barristers. And we eventually found out that they weren't an investigating solicitors, and we had to stand them down from Aaron's case because they weren't prepared. They told us themselves, told myself and Caroline in their office, they weren't prepared to investigate these things. So that's how it got passed. It was very well showboated. It was very well showcased. And Judge Michael White allowed all this to happen and to be brushed past. And particularly when we go through some of this information we're going to look at tonight, we will see what Judge Michael White actually allowed as we move on to the American witnesses and the intimidation case.
Lovely.
I missed out the gang last night, but I don't want to be. That's another story. The gang we done last night as well. There never was five. We are 100% sure 4 men jumped across the wall at the back of Lordship Credit Union and 1 woman driving. So we had 5 members of the gang, and there's never been 5 people named. Continually named during the course of Aaron's trial was Aaron, James Flynn, and Brendan Traynor. And obviously, everyone should know now, James Flynn and Brendan Traynor have been acquitted of being involved in the modern robbery at Lordship Credit Union on Friday, the 25th of January, 2013. So as it stands tonight, Aaron Brady is serving a sentence on his own for an event and a heinous crime that was carried out by 5 people, at least. And there may have been, we spoke last night about other people being in the background, logistics. There had to be other people involved and other people with knowledge. And none of that can be linked to Aaron Brady. So there is no gang. It was fictionally created.
Okay. Thanks for that, Tony. Yeah, and as I said, people can go back. Sure. I think in the description, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, if you check in the description, you will see links to the first 2 interviews. Okay, you've sent me a few slides here, Tony. Let me bring it up on the screen here. Here we go. Sorry, no, I'm looking at the wrong.
That's the wrong one, I think. Yeah, that's us there.
Now.
So I think, again, most people will be aware, and what we've covered over the last 2 nights was circumstantial evidence that was, we say, very much tampered with and interfered with by the Irish authorities. And it was always stated that the circumstantial evidence in this case was very, very weak. And obviously we've shown that and highlighted that very much so. And the mainstay of the main thrust of the prosecution against Aaron was witnesses in America. So Aaron is alleged to have told some people in America that he's the man that shot and murdered Detective Garda Adrian Donohoe. And we have highlighted and shown the Irish public already, and it's been something we've worked on again extensively. All these people have either criminal records, are drug dealers, and were illegal immigrants. And we're almost certainly, and as we go through this, we'll be able to show there is actually paperwork and leads and physical evidence there for all to see that those people who give evidence and give statements against Aaron were completely corrupted. They were coerced and put under pressure by the Irish authorities. And as we go through this now, we're going to have a quick look at sort of two sets of slides tonight, the American witnesses and intimidation. And I will highlight as we go through this, the intimidation was actually carried out by the Irish authorities on Garda Siochana, American agent, Homeland Security agent Matt Katsky, and that was sanctioned by the Irish authorities. And I suppose it's important to say at this time, we've always said if someone came forward with truthful evidence, we would have no issue with that, and we would have to stand up and say that is fair, right, and just. If for 1 second any of us, Aaron's family, thought for 1 second Aaron had anything to do with this more than robbery, we would not be carrying out this campaign the way we are. We would have to accept it and move on with our lives as best as is possible. So the only reason we investigated these people and the only reason we have called out these people is that the reason is very simple. They are telling a tissue of lies, predominantly to save their own lives in America. And I think it's very, very important to understand too, the media and obviously DPP are throwing accusations against our family. But first and foremost, at the very beginning, when we go through these names here today, as soon as Aaron seen these names and statements in the book of evidence, he told us, he says, "Dad, that's not true. That never happened. Dad, he's telling lies. That's a load of bullshit. That never happened." So that's very, very important. From the very onset, as soon as Aaron seen these people and knew about these people, we started to look into their history and why they were telling lies. Because when I spoke to Aaron, and myself and Caroline spoke to Aaron, we knew Aaron was telling us the truth. And I will repeat once again, I've said it before, if for 1 second we believed Aaron had anything to do with this terrible crime and the death of Detective Garda Adrian Donohoe, we would most certainly not be running this campaign for our son. So that's the basis. We're going to have a look at these people in America and what they have done. And we look at the slide here. We'll give a quick synopsis of each, and then we'll run through some of the detail. I said to Stephen just before we went on air, I could do probably an hour on each one of these six and other associated persons in this case, but I'll go through it as quickly as I can tonight for you. So Daniel Cahill was lauded as the main witness, the star witness in Aaron's case, and he is the man accredited with gaining Aaron's conviction. So you can see there I have a witness number. All these people were in the book of evidence. It's very important when we go through to the intimidation part of the night. It's important to understand Daniel Cahill was not on the book of evidence when Aaron first received it. He was not a witness. But Daniel Cahill's situation was he was caught with steroids and marijuana when he was arrested on the 19th of July 2019. He hid in his attic allegedly for 6 hours. He was caught with marijuana and steroids in his apartment that day. He's an illegal immigrant. We know he was involved in a machete attack on a group of young Irish lads, and he had close associations with the real IRA, and Homeland Security were very much aware of that. Molly Staunton, as many people would know, she was allowed to give her testimony from her kitchen, and she was assaulted while giving testimony to Aaron's trial from her kitchen to the courtroom in Dublin. And some of the interactions with this mysterious man behind her laptop, she was given her evidence as I am speaking to you here this evening. And the man behind the laptop told her, tell them what you're fucking supposed to tell them. So that's, and Molly has a lot of other issues, but we'll go into that as we go through. Ronan, another gentleman who gave a statement against Aaron, we found out he had an extradition warrant that was made disappear. He was an illegal immigrant. He had drug charges in Ireland, and we're also very much aware that he was involved in the drugs trade and has drug charges in New York. All these people were allowed to stay in New York. If I move on to the next slide, Stephen, we have Christopher Morton. And this gentleman, I believe, this is my personal belief, this man orchestrated people to tell lies against Aaron in order to get green cards and or cash. Some of these people are very nice businesses now back in America. Christopher Morton was involved in the Committee for Restorative Justice in Newry. That's a little group that brings people together, victims and perpetrators. Needless to say, Morton wasn't a victim of the crimes. He was banished from his home by local association that took the money he stole and sent him on his way to America. He was an illegal immigrant. His statement is a total tissue of lies, which we have proven, and we'll show to how he also tried to recruit his cousin, you see the next man here, Anthony Maguire, into giving a false statement also. And you see there, Morton was witness number 60. His first cousin, Anthony Maguire, is witness number 64. He absconded from Newry. He was caught with a large amount of drugs, cash in Newry, County Down in 2014. He later, he did give a statement against Aaron, as we'll see, and he did later withdraw it and said he was put under severe duress by An Garda Siochana to make the statement. Matthew Flaherty, this is an American gentleman. He was caught with cocaine and a large quantity of prescription drugs, and he was told he would get 25 years in jail for harbouring an IRA terrorist, i.e. that's Aaron. And he says the police showed him the Irish newspaper and the police wrote a statement. And we actually have video of that man speaking. So this, as we get into it now, I suppose we go to the next slide. This is the Irish media and how they portrayed Daniel Cahill. You can see there Robin Schiller, a mainstream journalist, done a very nice hero piece on him and tried to save him from himself on a number of occasions, along with Patrick O'Connell. And Owen Reynolds did write this, and I think it's important to highlight it, that we were fully aware of Daniel Cahill's credentials very early on. And Michael O'Higgins and Justin McQuaid, Aaron's two barristers, did question Daniel Cahill's credibility, obviously. And if we read here very quickly, a star witness in the trial of the man accused of murdering Detective Garda Adrian Donohoe might have had a lot of motives to make things up, a defence barrister has told the Central Criminal Court. Michael O'Higgins, senior counsel for Aaron Brady, told a jury of 6 men and 7 women that the background to Daniel Cahill giving evidence was shrouded in mystery, and he may have been subjected to threats and inducements by Homeland Security before speaking to An Garda Siochana. So it was highlighted. Judge Michael White was very aware of what was going on in the background between Homeland Security, the Irish DPP, An Garda Síochána, and Homeland Security agents Matt Katsky and Mary Ann Wade. So we'll have a quick look at Mr. Cahill here. So we have to believe Daniel Cahill, Homeland Security, an immigration removal officer, NYPD, a drugs unit, and members of An Garda Síochána arrived at Daniel Cahill's apartment in New York on the 19th of July 2018. Daniel Cahill heard the door rapping, and he was in bed with his then girlfriend, and he left her on the bed, and he says he hid in an attic for 6 hours naked. Now, it's important, those 6 hours are vitally important, because some of the paperwork we have, we know they rolled up to his door sometime around 6 to 7 a.m. And the reason we're not 100% sure, they would not release the full details of Cahill's arrest. A Homeland Security agent came on screen, Mary Ann Wade, and she kept saying, Mr. Cahill was detained. He was detained. He was handcuffed. Was he arrested? No, Mr. Cahill was detained. And this is what Michael O'Higgins had and Justin McQuaid had to deal with. So they arrived at 6 or 7 o'clock, but he's not booked into precinct. 21st is the 21st. I'm not sure of the precinct. Excuse me. Until 1 p.m. So there's a 6-hour gap. And we have to believe Homeland Security, NYPD, like they weren't looking at this man. They weren't going to arrest him. All stood around, scratching their heads and walking around Daniel Cahill's apartment for 6 hours before they found him in the attic. Like, the base of the story is absolutely pathetic. And you just can't believe that it actually happened. Then the little slide, the picture on the right, Daniel Cahill was caught with marijuana and steroids, and the best attempts ever was made to cover up the marijuana because the drugs unit got involved with that, and then it was a hemp plant, and then it was in a hallway, a communal hallway. Then we realised that in Cahill's statement, it was actually in his office, in his apartment. So there was lies being made up in relation to the marijuana. And this really proves that the collusion and corruption was going on. Mary Ann Wade, while being cross-examined, the Homeland Security agent, while being cross-examined by Michael O'Higgins, let it slip it was a very volatile cross-examination. She mentioned the steroids. What steroids? Now, this is in July 2020. What steroids? What steroids? Nobody in Aaron's defence team, no paperwork, nothing about the steroids. It was completely hidden. And then the man there in the picture on that top right, Mark Phillips, this man, I've watched him, he's the senior investigating officer, wrote everything down every day of the nearly 1 year trial we were in Dublin. He stood up and he said he went to America in September 2019. That was the first he had heard about steroids. That's a lie, because he was there at the arrest of Daniel Cahill. He knew perfectly well. That's what I'm saying. Mark Phillips purged himself. He knew perfectly well about the steroids. And he came back to Ireland in October, did write up some notes about the steroids, and oh dear, he forgot to put it into the book of evidence. So that's what happened on the 19th of July when Daniel Cahill was arrested, 2019, and he became the star witness. And during the course of Daniel Cahill's cross-examination, now obviously we know he was hiding in the attic for the 6 hours, but while we were discussing this, I'll not say discussing, again, a very volatile cross-examination by Aaron's barrister, Mr. Justin McQuaid. Daniel Cahill let it slip. They were discussing this whole situation with the attic and hiding, and why was he hiding? And Cahill said he told us that the Irish authorities and the Homeland Security had actually visited him previously. And they visited him previously in relation to the next slide. Let's see if we can. Yep. So while Daniel Cahill was in America, but before he went to America, the gentleman on Daniel Cahill's right with the white T-shirt is Dean Evans. This gentleman shot and murdered Peter Butterley, gangland murder here in a car park in County Meath. Dean Evans went on the run. Now, he was since recaptured in Spain, taken back to Ireland, and admitted to murdering Peter Butterley. But while he was on the run in Spain, the Irish authorities seen fit to send Homeland Security to Daniel Cahill's apartment to look under Daniel Cahill's bed for Dean Evans. And that was withheld from Aaron's defence team. And they played it down to the very minimum. And we'll see his friendship with the 32 County Sovereignty Committee and the real IRA now. So, and again, I'm showing Matt Katsky here. Matt Katsky, for want of, and it is the right, it's not for the want of a better phrase, it is the right phrase. Matt Katsky, Homeland Security agent, was Daniel Cahill's handler. Because during Cahill's testimony, Matt, my friend Matt, and Matt Katsky, as we go through this presentation, we'll see has his finger in all the pies as we move forward. So we have to ask the question, Daniel Cahill's an illegal immigrant, and this is before anything happened at Lordship Credit Union. This gentleman here, Dean Evans, so they're calling to an apartment for someone who's in association with a terrorist. And Daniel Cahill still remained in the United States of America. So obviously there was some sort of collusion going on between Cahill and the Irish authorities even before Aaron's situation. And if we move on to the next slide, Daniel Cahill obviously was questioned, and this will come into the intimidation. We gathered a lot of this information because Aaron had told us, as I said, when Daniel Cahill did pop up as a witness, Aaron said, I had nothing to do with that man. That man attacked me in my apartment. So therefore, none of this information can be correct. These stories that Daniel Cahill is telling, that I had chats with him and told him I shot a cop and I can't live with myself because I shot a cop, is all nonsense. He said I stayed well clear of Daniel Cahill, as did a lot of people. But in our quest of looking for information around Daniel Cahill, we found him here. This was all on Daniel Cahill's own social media site. The red arrow you can see is Daniel Cahill, and the blue arrow is Alan Ryan. And they're carrying the flag of the 32 County Sovereignty Committee, which I believe is the political wing of the real IRA. And this is just Daniel Cahill with some of the Ryans. And Daniel Cahill, during cross-examination, led the jury to believe that he did live close to the Ryans, was brought up close to them, but he sort of parted ways with them when he was 12. Well, he's not 11 in any of those pictures. So he's telling lies and he's purging himself on the stand. And again, if he was telling the truth, he could put his hands up and say, yes, I was with these people, but it was all hidden. Very much hidden. So it's all total lies. And this is just for those people who don't know what the 32 County Sovereignty Committee is. You can just see the next slide. The Republican 32 County Sovereignty Committee posted messages on the website saying they remember with pride Oglach, Vincent Ryan, Dublin Brigade, Irish Republican Army, who was shot and murdered by criminals on this day 8 years ago. So it just shows that, just giving some clarity and clarification, that the 32 County Sovereignty Committee is the political wing of the real IRA. And then again, the next bit, again, more lies. We did, again, this is information we had known at the time of Aaron's trial, and we had given it to the Aaron's barristers, but they couldn't use it because we didn't actually have concrete proof. But Daniel Cahill then told us himself in this, he actually created on a podcast from his bar in America. And Patrick O'Connell, for the date, I don't know whether it's the Star or the Sun, this exclusive, tries to sanitize what Cahill told us in that podcast. And as it says there, yeah, he was, how while living in Dublin, he was being groomed by criminals, but his mother made him leave after he was repeatedly stabbed in the front seat of the car. So at a certain point, the shit hits the fan with these guys. They get into a feud with a load of other people, and I get stabbed. I get stabbed in the arm, I get stabbed in the leg, I get stabbed in the hand, I get stabbed in the side. So this information should have been given to, irrespective, and it's not related to the murder and robbery, but when someone is given a witness in a capital murder trial, this evidence must be given forward, because the bona fides of any witness is there to be challenged. And obviously the foundation of Cahill's statement is that he stayed in America when he was an illegal immigrant. and he should have been, we'll see now in a slide or two, where he should have been deported. Like, there is no question about that. And we move on to the next slide. Again, this is all reasons why Daniel Cahill should have been deported. These are the people that were attacked by Daniel Cahill, Ado Kieran and Davy Cushion. And this is some of the text messages these people sent to us. And again, like what happened in a lot of situations, nobody knew anything about this until Daniel Cahill gave his evidence. He was on TV and on the Irish newspapers. The star witness, this man came forward. Aaron Brady made these admissions to Daniel Cahill, and Daniel Cahill was a first-class honorary citizen. And I could say it's only hearsay, but I could tell you what these people and a lot of people think of Daniel Cahill. So we can see there from the text messages, told the police to set in charges. It was Ado, Dano and Davy. And you can see in the next slides there, tells us quite clearly. Yeah, I think he is, that's, the white blanks there are just people's names, and just because they've sent us the messages, I just taken the names out. They were and they did push charges, because push charges, as Dano could have killed him stone dead, seen Dano just missing him. He said, witness Dano just missing brain in the chest. And this actually did go to court in America. Daniel Cahill got a barring order, restraining orders from these people, and that was hidden from Aaron's defence team. And again, I suppose the bottom line is here is the next slide. Aaron's legal team brought this gentleman here, Kerry Bretts, is the gentleman, it's the male, and his view when he read the details of Daniel Cahill's arrest and the machete attack and his interaction with Homeland Security in regards of the real IRA, his feet shouldn't have touched the ground. He should have been on the next available flight out of the US of A. So the bottom line is, why was he not on the next available flight out of the US of A? Mm-hmm. So obviously the deals were done, and all that information was withheld. And a lot of it, when it was pursued and we do know that An Garda Siochana were fully aware. And there's a lot more information and stories behind Daniel Cahill and his behaviour and his actions before he was stabbed and before he left Ireland. And
so just in summarising there, he's, as I say, he's the star witness.
Yes.
A few things you mentioned there. So there was drugs found in his apartment. He was illegal in the USA. He was friends with Alan Riley from the 32 County Sovereignty Movement. Yeah. He was also friends with, I forget the man's name, who you said.
Yeah, Dean Evans. Yeah.
Dean Evans, who shot Alan Butterley. And there was also a restraining order against him for a violent assault that he carried out.
With a machete, yes.
A machete. So, yeah, there's your star witness there.
That's your star witness. And a lot of us, I think there was headlines here in Ireland. I think the Limerick hurling team were over in New York, and one of them was caught urinating on the street or in an alleyway, and he was deported the next day. So somewhere, something is wrong.
Yes, Daniel Cahill is important for some reason.
Yes. And I will reiterate once again, as soon as and you'll see why we contacted Daniel Cahill, but as it tangled web we weave. But as we move forward, you will see how Daniel Cahill raises his head again in relation to Aaron. And obviously we see this collusion and coercion by An Garda Siochana, and they even documented how they were going to help people and bribe people into giving statements or evidence. And we move into the next section of it just to give people a taste of what was done by the Irish Guards. Senior Investigating Officer Pat Murray posted all these, put these posters up all over the Irish area of the Bronx, Woodlawns, Katona Avenue, and they were put up in all the local shops and restaurants. You can see there, 100,000 reward for info on suspect in Irish cop killing who lived in the Bronx. Now, it does say suspect there, and your readers, the viewers might be able to see there's a little line at the top that we can't read at the minute. So if we just go, if you skip 2 slides for a second, I just have these the wrong, So the line at the top of that poster says, 100,000 reward for info on suspect in Irish cop killer who lived in the Bronx. So I have cop killing there, but if we see it, it's Irish cop killer who lived in the Bronx. So they're actually saying, and when we read this paragraph here, I'll just give you some of it, Stephen. I'll not delay. The lead suspect in the brutal slaying, 26-year-old native of Crossmaglen, County Armagh, who cannot be named in order to prevent future arrest to the case, travelled to New York. It gives all the details, and it's he was arrested and in a detention centre until May 23rd when he was deported. And then he was for committing crimes in 2011 involving, that's the car that was, he racked the cars in Dundalk. He pleaded guilty to these charges before escaping to New York. So he's serving a sentence for that. So they're more or less describing Aaron there, and that's very important because that was used as leverage to get people to create and tell lies and a false statement. And we'll show that as we move through the next people. But I just want to go back to the last one, Stephen. Yeah. Just the senior investigating officer, Pat Murray, who had the brainwave of putting out this poster. Not only was he offering $100,000 reward, but he also went online and was involved in a podcast in the Irish Central in New York. And he offered an S visa, created to help law enforcement prosecute. So S visa holders can apply for permanent resident green status, a green card, if the information provided has substantially contributed to successful investigation or prosecution. So Pat Murray was actually reprimanded by the Homeland Security officers in New York for actually doing that. Like, he's offering green cards and again, we're going to go back to the how we were told, and the Irish people were led to believe that all these people were good, honest, decent, clean living people who came forward. But we've seen with Daniel Cahill, and we've seen how it was set up to bribe, induce and coerce people into actually making statements. So we move on, and then so that's Daniel Cahill, and we will come across him again as we move forward. Molly Staunton, again, a lot of people will have been aware of this. Molly Staunton was allowed to give her statement from her kitchen in New York, again, because of COVID. So Judge Michael White was fully aware that Molly Staunton had lied to him at the very beginning and the outset of this testimony. She was asked, and she did give an undertaking, and I do believe she signed an undertaking sent to her by the Irish DPP, that she would be on her own and that there would be no one in her presence while she gave her statement to the courts in Dublin. And we heard noises in the background on both days. So Molly Staunton said yes, that everything was fine, but she lied. From the very outset, we can see that there was a man in the room. And this is what transpired. If you go to the next slide, we can see that the man behind the screen said, tell them what you're fucking supposed to tell them. No more testimony. And this was at a very, very vital time in her testimony. She was being cross-examined by Fiona Murphy for Aaron's defence team. And it was at a stage where she was saying, well, actually, Aaron didn't say he was the man who shot the cop. And it's now we do know that this situation did take place where Aaron was very, very upset because An Garda Siochana had called to his dead girlfriend's now wife, his whole family down in Kerry. And they actually told the family in Kerry that I was the head of the IRA in South Armagh, had murdered numerous people, had commissioned several murders, and that Aaron was involved in the IRA and had murdered people. So this is what Garda Kieran Reedy and Garda Kerwin told these people in Kerry, in the south of Ireland. They travelled from Dundalk, and obviously these people were extremely upset. They were ringing their daughter in red alert, telling her to get away from this Brady fella as quick as you can. So that is the incident and that took place in Aaron's apartment. And needless to say, I must say, and I mentioned that family again last night when they sat down, and they had met Aaron on numerous occasions because they too had businesses in New York and had met Aaron. The whole family had met Aaron in New York, and they were able to sit down and logically look at the man they knew and what the guards had told them. And they've been an absolute tower, a rock of support for us. And they didn't buy into what An Garda Siochana, but it shows the depths they will go to. So that's the incident, and that is why Molly Staunton, and Molly did have issues with the NYPD in respect of an abusive relationship and money stolen. There was issues possibly with health, and we've never really never really attacked Molly. We would suggest that she was playable, for the want of a better word. And again, the guards turned up at her door, and all of a sudden she became a witness for the prosecution.
And that mystery man that was prompting her from behind the curtain. Is there any investigation, or is there any chance or hope of finding out who that was?
No. Well, if you go to the next slide, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on him, the following morning, and unfortunately that day in the court when it happened, and very quickly, I'll just mention it, when it happened back in 2020, it all happened very quickly, and there's a lot of muffling, there's a lot of shuffling in the court. But when we heard it again during the course of Aaron's appeal last October, there was audible gasps in the court when the people sitting in the body of the court heard this man shouting at Molly. And he slapped down the laptop on her, and there was a physical altercation, almost certainly. You could hear the physical altercation between the two of them. So the following morning, these two men here stood up in court, Brendan Graham, Senior Counsel for the Prosecution, and Mark Phillips, and told the court that there would be no investigation into the man, that Mr. Phillips had spoken to Miss Staunton, and he was happy that it was just a male friend. And he was obviously shouting at her directly about the information she was given to the court. And that day in the court, without a shadow of a doubt, Mark Phillips was at the back of the court, and he had at least someone else was with us that day believes he had 3 phones, but I will swear he had 2 phones. So he was speaking to someone, and he was speaking to Molly Staunton, and a very interesting thing happened again. We could see the light going on the screen, and Molly Staunton, there was sort of a silence in the court while we were trying to, I think the jury was either been taken in or taken out, and the light came on the screen, and Molly moved up and started reading like this. Judge Michael White said, Miss Staunton, can I ask you, are you after receiving the message? Are you reading something on your screen? And Molly Staunton said, no, I'm just checking that my laptop is all right. Her phone is also pinging beside the laptop, and you can see her looking to the side to her phone. So Molly Staunton was being most certainly coached. If that had to happen in an Irish court, the man would have been jumped on, arrested, done for contempt of court, and would almost certainly serve some form of a sentence. But Judge Michael White allowed this to happen. And again, we have to say, we are being accused of intimidation, and here we have a blatant attempt by someone to coerce Molly Staunton to give evidence. We were told it was some sort of a male friend or male acquaintance, but there are other issues, family matters behind that are as an ongoing investigation on our behalf. It's not intimidation. We're investigating what happened because, as you can see, Phillips and Graham refused. And Judge Michael White was happy for that to happen in a court that he presided over.
Terrible.
It should have been Fiona Murphy, who was cross-examining Miss Staunton at the time, was actually in tears begging Miss Staunton. And we heard it this year. Miss Staunton, Judge, you can hear Judge White, Miss Staunton, are you okay? And you can hear the tremble in her voice. Yeah, I'm okay. Did it continue? Her demeanour had completely changed.
Right.
So it was horrific. Like, we only heard it the once in 2020, and then we had to wait 3.5 years to hear it again, and it was absolutely horrific.
Yeah, it'd be great if we had some of those recordings to play for the public, wouldn't it?
Yes, and really, because it was in a public court and Aaron was tried before his peers, I would guarantee, Stephen, that our mainstream media, if there was any possibility that the cloaked man behind the laptop had anything to do with the Brady family, Mr. Paul Reynolds would be playing it. It would be headlines on 9 o'clock news.
Oh yeah, of course.
And that's a fact. So, but no. So we move on to the next person, and this is very much involved. This is another gentleman who gave a statement against Aaron, and his story is very confusing and very entangled. But there are some sort of accusations that when we go to the intimidation, we'll be looking at this man. This man was given a statement. It was a recorded statement in Homeland Security room in New York, and some of that recorded statement taking was videoed on a phone from a screen of a laptop and released on social media, and this was seen as the Brady family attempting to intimidate this man, but we'll get on to that later. I just want to show this man's credentials, and again, some of the carry-on of the Irish institutions here is just absolutely crazy. I introduce him by saying this is actually, I think it's his Instagram he sent to my daughter, and you can see a little bit there, tell your dad to call me. So this man has been in contact with us, and he made the initial contact with us. So I think that's vitally important to know as we move forward and we go into these worrying times with the state are trying to create an intimidation case against Aaron and our family. So this is how Ronan got involved with An Garda Siochana, and this is the two stories from, shall we say, opposing sides. So on the left there, and we have this, a number of texts Ronan sent to ourselves and to other friends, and I have a number of recorded conversations with him, and his story remains the same. So very quickly, they arrested me at my job in front of a whole bar full of people. I lost my job. They held me in handcuffs with 7 carloads of police, told me I'm going home. I'll never see my wife and child again, on some bullshit about Tommy case that was fake paper. And again, when we get into it a little bit deeper, this is in respect, the fake paper he is talking about there is an extradition warrant for a very serious assault which took place here in Ireland in the Cooley Peninsula. So that's, this is Ronan's view or story of what happened the day he met with An Garda Siochana. kept me in handcuffs to the side of the cell, busted into my house with no warrant to search it, made an example of me over here, took my interview for my 10-year green card after that, because I told them when I got my lawyer, I want my statement taken off this. It was a forced fake statement. The guard basically wrote it himself. And so for that, they took my file from immigration because I wouldn't help them with the AB case. I presume that's Aaron Brady case. And I was trying to expose them. So that's Ronan's take on what happened that day. And we do believe that to be true because there are other drugs charges involving Ronan. But this is a part of an affidavit where senior investigating officer, it says Mac Phillips there, but it is actually just Phillips. So, and this has been redacted by the state rather than us. But Mr. Phillips met Ronan on August 31st, 2017 at his place of work. He asked Ronan, was he willing to be interviewed by An Garda Siochana? Ronan agreed, and an appointment was made for the following day, September the 1st. Ronan subsequently cancelled that meeting. Now, as far as the conversations I've had with Ronan, he's denied that. I don't know. In October 2017, members returned to New York hoping to interview Ronan if he was willing, i.e. had he changed his mind. On arrival, they were apparently informed by the HSI, Homeland Security, that they had discovered an immigration issue affecting Ronan. They had a warrant for his arrest. Homeland Security informed Mr. Phillips that once the matters in relation to the warrant had been processed, that Ronan would be asked if he wished to speak to An Garda Siochana. So upon arrest, Ronan was agreeable to being interviewed, but wanted proof that An Garda Siochana were present in New York. Detective Sergeant Gill, as he now is, who knew Ronan, and Detective Gill knew Ronan because Detective Gill was very much involved in the drugs case with Ronan, which we'll look at very shortly. And he was also involved in the serious assault case. So they're trying to sugarcoat. Ronan was arrested, and when other conversations I've had with Ronan, Ronan says he was thrown into the back of an SUV with Phillips and Gill, and he was told, "You will never see your wife and child again. You're going home on this extradition warrant." So it appears that Ronan was released after being interviewed, and this is how is this possible? A man with an outstanding extradition warrant, a European extradition warrant, and he was allowed released without charge. It's so murky and dirty, it's unbelievable. This was unusual as Ronan was a fugitive. A European arrest warrant had been issued with respect to an alleged offence, a non-fatal offence against the Person Act 1997. The offence had been alleged to have taken place in October. Ronan had allegedly attacked a man in the bar, smashed a snooker ball into his face. It would appear that members of the investigation team were unaware of the charge and only learned of it when it was brought to their attention in November 20th, that a warrant for Ronan was arrested outstanding. Now, again, that last bit, Stephen, is very, very important when we break it down. An Garda Siochana tried to suggest to us that, and the Irish public, that they didn't know anything about the arrest warrant and the extradition warrant. But that could not be true because, obviously, Garda Gill was involved in both cases with Ronan. And both cases, obviously, Fort Apache incident room, as described by Pat Murray, was handling the Morton investigation. And Fort Apache Dundalk would have been dealing with Ronan's European extradition warrant. So any suggestion that these Gardaí did not know that the extradition warrant existed is lies. They tried to pull the wool over the Homeland Security agents, but the Homeland Security office, obviously, when they seen that the guards were looking for Ronan, his name popped up, and lo and behold, a European extradition warrant was sitting in front of us. So Ronan, An Garda Síochána would have known, and they withheld that information from Homeland Security. But notwithstanding that, as we move on, we will see that the extradition warrant disappeared. But this is just to confirm that he was found with 10 bags of cannabis. A North Loud man was found with 10 bags of cannabis worth almost €250, brought shame in his family with his actions in Dock District Court. So Ronan, with an address in Moneymore Grove Road, Carlingford, admitted having the drugs for sale or supply. So he's a drug dealer. And the Americans allowed him to stay in New York. Now, I am sure when Ronan filled out his ESTA, on occupation, he didn't write drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, that it just beggars belief that they were going to bring this man again. He was witness number 64, I think, in the book of evidence. But we'll see how that transpired. And just to show that Carlingford man acquitted of charge relating to pub assault, that's actually Ronan's dad. And it was actually Ronan's dad who hit the man with the pool ball. Ronan actually knocked the man to the ground, kicked him, and hit him with a glass Coca-Cola bottle. So that's that story. And again, I am certain Ronan did not put that on his ESTA. Now, when someone are prepared to give evidence in any trial, let alone a capital murder trial, the bona fides and the suitability of these people have to be checked.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this man would not be suitable.
No.
So, again, we're looking at we're looking at the extradition warrant. And again, this highlights what I've just after saying. 21st November, to try and cover up here by using Pat Murray as a stooge. Correspondence was received at the Dundalk Garda Station from the Garda Extradition Section, Garda Headquarters, who were in the process of conducting a review of European arrest warrants. 7 arrest warrants were submitted to Garda Division Louth. Detective Inspector Murray was assigned to task to conduct inquiries into the position regarding the warrants. One of those warrants related to Ronan. This extradition warrant was related to an alleged assault by Ronan on, and that's the dates. And so the directions were received from the Director of Public Prosecutions to prosecute Ronan on the indictment of the offence. And we can see as we move on to the next paragraph, this particular inquiry from the extradition says was assigned to Inspector Murray and Detective Inspector Sergeant Cian Reedy. Reedy met with the injured party in the case on the 2nd of December, and the injured party informed Detective Reedy that if Ronan offered an apology to him, the complaint would be withdrawn. So you'll see later on where the very top of the Irish authorities are seeking a stay on the extradition warrant. And in the meantime, Senior Investigating Officer Pat Murray and Detective Cian Reedy go to the injured party, the man Ronan and his father attacked, and got him to go to a solicitor and withdraw his complaint. So this was all going on behind the works, behind the workings in Fort Apache, Dundalk. And lo and behold, who turns up again? Detective Inspector Murray spoke with Special Agent Matthew Katsky, who was at the time in New York, and Detective Inspector relayed to Katsky that the complaint had been withdrawn and we can move on with our plan of getting Ronan to give a false statement against Aaron Brady. You couldn't make this stuff up. But then, as we move on, Ronan becomes a recruiter. And this only highlights how it only cements that Ronan's statement is a tissue of lies, because Ronan decides to try and recruit people. And he sent this, Ronan sent to his cousin. And we have the full thread of these, and they're there for people to see.
Sorry, Tony.
So that's fine. So Ronan's sending messages in to his. This is actually to his cousin, and his cousin gave us these messages. And you can see in the left, the yellow. Yeah, let me know. My boy works for Homeland. He got Emma Jane a 10-year visa, and she was banned from coming back out in March. So Matt Katsky was getting Ronan's sister a 10-year visa. He's a good friend of mine, and he has a lot of power. And you can see again now what happened. The reason I just want to show this here is he tried to get Matt Katsky to meet up with his cousin. And if anyone wants to see the full threads, we will send them. We can post them on Aaron's website. And Ronan lost his number, and there we go. Can you send me Matt's number? So there's it there, that it's Katsky again is up to his neck in it. And just very, very quickly, we can see the next where Ronan's offering, and he's going to broker a deal. And he's saying to his cousin, you can hear what he has to say and then decide. In the UK, where you are, he can meet you wherever you want. You send me the place and he can meet her, and I'll give him your number and you can meet up and see what you think. He can meet you this week after work. So he's very anxious to get this deal done.
Yeah.
And there on the side, that was Matt Katsky's number that was transferred between the two. And HLS is Homeland Security. So there's no ambiguity there. Homeland Security, and we'll get on to Matt Katsky's tape again. We're going around just offering inducements and helping, just getting anyone on board. Give us Brady and you can have green cards and or cash, or both. This next document is from, and this is where we have at the very highest level, the Mr. Silverband, this email. Mr. Silverband is a very high-ranking member of the Homeland Security team in New York. The man at the bottom, Ray Briscoe, is a high-ranking member of the DPP in Ireland. And just at the middle, the section that I see, I'll read it all. I refer to our area correspondence in relation to this case. There is one further important matter which I will need to discuss with the director. Read this case. The matter was brought to detention this morning following on from Special Agent Katsky's email below. So he's very grateful to Agent Katsky for warning them about Ronan's extradition. I apologise for for the indecision this creates, but would be grateful if you would allow a further period of 2 weeks prior to proceeding with the executing, i.e. for the processing, of this extradition request in the US. This will allow our office to consider in full further information that Detective Inspector Patrick Murray, the investigating Garda, now wishes to raise with our office. We will revert to you in the next 2 weeks to clarify the position. So Ray Briscoe from the DPP had spoken to Pat Murray. Pat Murray says, Ray, will you do me a favour? Will you get on to your friend over in Homeland Security, Mr. Silverband, and hold off on extraditing Ronan until we iron everything out? Lo and behold, the extradition warrant eventually disappears and Ronan stays in New York.
Yeah.
So, where are we now? Yeah, we're going to continue now with, Mr. Katsky. Excuse me. Sometimes it's very difficult to read through all this. It's upsetting. Excuse me. Okay, so the next bit is we're going to continue with Mr. Katsky. Back in Aaron's trial, I think I told you on numerous occasions that in October, November, December 2019, there was a lot of legal argument. Much of it involved the carry-on between the DPP and Homeland Security. There was vast swathes, hundreds and hundreds of emails that the DPP would not release. And to all intents and purposes, Judge White stood over that and allowed the DPP in Ireland to withhold them. And then we came to the situation with Matt Katsky's tape, this Homeland Security agent again. And this tape, obviously, as you can see there, the Judge White refused to allow the tape into Aaron's case because it's related directly at that time to Jimmy Flynn, Freudian slip there. So Judge White refused to allow the interactions that was recorded between James Flynn and Matt Katsky. And the reason he didn't allow it was because he said Matt Katsky was talking to James Flynn. And for 3 months, and indeed for probably 6 months in the trial, I would suggest that James Flynn's name was mentioned more than Aaron's name during the course of Aaron's trial. And I think if anyone wants to go and look through the transcripts, I would bet James Flynn was mentioned more often than Aaron. So obviously this tape arose again and was very much part of Aaron's appeal in October last year. And some of the reporting, I think this is Alison O'Riordan actually gave us some coverage on this. And you can see there, Courts News Ireland, this is Michael O'Higgins, Aaron's barrister during the course of the appeal. A secret liquid gold recording captures a US agent, and that's Matt Katsky, unashamedly coercing a suspect to put Aaron Brady in the frame for murdering the Garda and was wrongly withheld from the trial jury. Barrister Michael O'Higgins, senior counsel, has told the Court of Appeal. So
did they play that recording?
They did play it then in during the course of the appeal, and I'm hoping I have them here now. What was said in it? Yeah, I do have it. Yeah, yes, they did play the court in the appeal. Now we had heard it during the course of Aaron's trial, but not in front of the jury. Yeah. Like it was played. Judge Michael White heard it on a number of occasions, and he made the decision that it wasn't. Well, I don't know. He just made a decision that in some way it wasn't connected to Aaron Brady's trial. Give us Brady, and you'll never hear from us again.
How is that possible? That's unbelievable. Are you going to tell us a little bit about that recording?
Yeah, we're going to go down through it. Yeah, the next one, the next slide. Well, I've just highlighted Katsky as the special agent. Yeah. And obviously, just to show again that Aaron's appeal, there was 46 grounds of appeal. There were some addendums to each of those some of those 46 grounds, and I think it may have actually reached over 50, which is, I think, is astonishing. It would be unheard of in a criminal appeal. So this is just, I actually took some of this from Alison O'Riordan. It's Owen Reynolds and Alison O'Riordan actually wrote some of them. I am looking for the full transcripts of it. Indeed, I would love the recording, but we are sort of very, very restricted on what evidence they'll give us. And this has all been out in the public, but we're not allowed to give it. So this is some of the controversy arose after the Garda disclosed thousands of files to Brady ahead of his trial. Among the files, lawyers discovered a recording of a conversation between Special Agent Matt Katsky. That's actually false. And this is one of the main reasons why we changed Aaron's legal team in May 2020. I wasn't aware. I had a little inkling that a tape, but I didn't realise the significance of it, that this tape existed. James Flynn had given this tape to a solicitor in April, I think, 2019. And the solicitor sort of sat on it and never told us about it.
Oh, my God.
So, and it's only when we rose it that then the files were disclosed. The judge had no option only to release the files on it. So discovered a recording of a conversation between Special Agent, our friend Matt Katsky, and Aaron Brady's best friend, who is also a suspect A in the case, in the Lordship robbery. Special Agent Katsky works for the Homeland Security and at the time of the recording in July 2017. He was attached to the British Embassy. Gardaí were still building their case against Brady, and members of the National Bureau of Criminal Investigation regularly travelled to New York to speak with people who had information that might help to finger Brady as the gunman. Katsky had travelled to Belfast. We'll cover this again, but we have an American agent based in London approaching a man in Belfast in relation to a crime that took place in the Republic of Ireland. So Katsky travelled to intercept suspect A. James Flynn at George Best Airport. Suspect A covertly recorded. In fairness, it wasn't James done it. It was James's then girlfriend, now wife, who actually recorded the conversation. Very, very. Imagine if we were trying to tell you now, Stephen, and the Irish people, that American agent that was based in London approached James Flynn and offered him inducements and you'll never see us again if you give us Brady. Do you think the people in Ireland would believe us?
I would seriously doubt it.
So
that recording, so who has access to that recording? Is it
well, Aaron's legal team has it, and obviously the DPP have it, and we would deal. If I had it, I would release it.
Like, will you get that evidence at some point?
Well, we will get it at some time.
Right.
Like it should be, because Owen Reynolds has written about it and Alison O'Riordan have written about it. It's out in the public domain. But because of Aaron's appeal, our legal team are somewhat sceptical of giving me information. I have been, Brendan Grehan has said, because I have put out some transcripts in Aaron's trial, evidence that was used against my son. And he thinks, because I've shared that with the Irish people, and this is evidence that was put forward in an open court when Aaron was being tried in front of his peers, in front of a jury, that I might be in contempt of court. So the legals are all, I'm not saying afraid, but they're, I'd say skeptical. How's that of giving us any of this information? I would dearly love to play that tape and let the Irish people hear it.
At some point, it'll be played.
It will be, yeah. It's going to have to be played at some stage.
Yeah.
So the conversation later and they sent a copy of it then to Katsky, who in turn sent it to Senior Investigating Officer Pat Murray. Let's see, where is the wording on it?
Oh my God.
Yeah, suspect A's brother was living in the US and had fallen foul of the immigration authorities. It's not strictly true. So that's James Flynn's brother. He was just rolling over his 5-year green card. But there was, again, I could go into great detail about a very strange case that was taken against James's brother in respect of an altercation he had with a worker. James and his brother had a couple of companies in America doing groundwork and tarmacking and such like, and there was an altercation, and they actually turned the whole case against James's brother. But then that has all disappeared since. But this is what Katsky said. Katsky said to James, among the snippets of the conversation that could be heard was Katsky saying, he's been removed, he's going home. I can find plenty wrong with his paperwork. And Katsky could be heard saying, if he puts Aaron Brady away, you will probably never hear from me again. I can't do anything for him until he commits to doing something for us.
Crazy.
Absolutely crazy. So that's what we've had to deal with, and that's what we've had to look at. And it gets more sinister then. So the next slide, we have, I've already said it, but we have an American Homeland Security agent on secondment to an American embassy in London, approaching a suspect in relation to a capital murder, which happened in the Republic of Ireland. And this happened in Belfast Airport, Northern Ireland. And when this was released in court, Senior Investigating Officer Pat Murray, as you can see him, this him here with his best mate, Matt, he got up under oath and said he knew nothing of Katsky's attempt to ambush James Flynn until the tape had been sent to him. That has to be lies. There is no way on God's earth did Katsky take on with doing this himself. He would have had to ask Mary for information about James Flynn in respect of the more than robbery at Lordship Credit Union. He would have had to ask Pat Mary about information in respect of James's brother Eugene. So any suggestion that Pat Mary did not know about this blatant attempt at coercion and collusion in Belfast Airport is nonsense. And again, if Mary wants to sue me, you're a liar, you committed perjury to save yourself, and you threw your mate Matt under the bus and said he was acting as a maverick.
Two mavericks in it.
Two mavericks, yes. So that's Matt Katsky, and he's also involved with our next gentleman here as we move on to next man witness number 64. And as
Tony,
I said,
just a quick time check there. It's 9:20. We can go for another hour. I know you've got another little presentation, but maybe just to mention that.
I think what we could do, Stephen, possibly is just finish this off, because there's another 10 or 12 slides in this. Finish off, because it's such an important, vital part of it. And if it's suited some evening next week, I really would like to work on intimidation.
Sure. Maybe even, I mean, yeah, you might tell us.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah, I'll tell you about it and how it links into this, or I'll try and get through it as quickly as possible. Yeah,
we can definitely come back to it. I don't know if you want to talk about, that court case that's coming up in relation to.
Yeah, the intimidation on the 8th of April.
So we can do it any time before then.
Any time before then, yes.
So you take your time with this, and we can come to that any time before the 8th of April, okay?
Yeah. So that's Mary and Katsky. And again, they're very heavily involved with this man here on the right, Brandon Alea. This is Christopher Morton, witness number, I forget now, 64, I think he is, or 60. No, he's 64. Matt Flaherty is 66. This man allegedly came forward, and his story is that he contacted the Sinn Féin councillor Anton Waters, a councillor in the Cooley Peninsula here, just outside Dundalk. And he said he had information in respect of the more than robbery at Lordship Credit Union. And the reason I have him in a collage there with the podcast, The Making of a Detective, with Pat Mary and Stephen Breen, is that during that podcast, Pat Mary tells us quite in some detail about his interactions with Christopher Morton, the lawyer. And Pat Mary told us that he checked out the bona fides of this man, and that he was very happy and satisfied that Christopher Morton and his story was genuine. So that's the starting point with Christopher Morton. And as we move through his story, we'll show how that is all a complete tissue of lies and holds, as I say, absolutely no water. So the next slide, this is basically Christopher Morton's statement. And he drank all day on a Friday at a wedding, and then he drank for 14 hours on the Saturday. So he was at, and the Irish wedding, believe it or not, it's a small world, is an Irish family. The groom's family was from Crossmaglen. So it was a Crossmaglen wedding that was taking place in New York. So Morton was at it, because Christopher Morton is actually from, as I look out my front window here across towards Slieve Gullion Mountain, he lived directly in under the mountain in a place called Mike, Meigh, in just outside Newry. So this is a story. I drank all day at the wedding. I went into Moriarty's on the Saturday. I played a couple of holes of golf. Went into Moriarty's around 2 or 3 o'clock on the Saturday, and then sometime around 2, 3, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, I went to this pub here, the Tombstone. So this is on the Saturday night. Now, during the course of his testimony, he got the times wrong. The times wrong at the wedding, the dates wrong at the wedding. He got the months wrong on the wedding. He got the year wrong. All his details was all over the place. And Indeed, I believe it was Inspector Phillips and McGovern who went back on a number of occasions and just got him to alter the dates and the times of his wedding. And you can see there at the bottom his wife and girlfriend is wrong. Because he had the wrong dates in his head, because he was telling lies, he actually mentioned his wife or his girlfriend. And because we know the correct date of the wedding, we know the people quite well, he's wrong in relation to the person he actually went to the pub with. So he said he went with a particular girl when that's totally wrong. He would have been with another girl at that date. But then again, there's marriages of convenience and different things. And it's when you're telling lies, it's very difficult to remember all the details.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his story. Let's see if I'm funny. Yeah, I have. Right. I want to say, so before I read that, his statement is he went to the bar that night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He went into the bar, and I do apologize, I haven't this up here now, but it's very simple. Christopher Morton says, I went up to the bar. There was a man and a girl sitting at the bar. I said, hello, how are you? How's things? What's your name? And the gentleman said, my name's Brady. Oh, Brady, very good. Are you the man that shot the guard? And the man replied, yeah, that's me. What the fuck is it to you? So that's the sum total of his statement. So he's after been drinking, and anyone in Yonkers, Katona, Woodlawn, if there's anyone watching there, they'll be able to tell you the hole that the tombstone was. It was the late bar. When everyone fell out of everywhere else, everyone was in the tombstone. Mm. So that was the sum total of a statement. And he also said in a statement, I want to say that I had never seen the fella at the bar who said he was Aaron Brady before that night. I have never seen him after that night. So this is vitally important because he's after drinking for 14 hours. He has a 10-second conversation with someone whom he's never seen before. He hasn't seen, when he gives his statement, it's nearly 3 years after the event. And this is where we move on now to why his evidence was ruled inadmissible. Because Detective Garda Bobby Ogle and Detective Garda Pat Murray, while taking a statement, and I did have the pleasure of seeing these two gentlemen take the statement, and they switched off the camera. And the camera operator, as you can see at the bottom, is our friend Matt Katsky again. The camera went back on, and Bobby Ogle and Pat Murray slipped a sheet of paper over under his nose, and they said, who's that man there? And there was a single picture of Aaron Brady. He says, that's Aaron Brady. That's the man that was at the bar. And it was ruled inadmissible. But I think Judge White, I'm certain Judge White actually done them a favour here. This was all set up because after the grueling Justin McQuaid give Daniel Cahill, Morton sent a text message to Senior Investigating Officer Mark Phillips, and he was very concerned that his friend Dan had been so vigorously quizzed about his past and his immigration status. So he was a coward anyway. He wasn't coming forward. But what Bobby Ogle and Pat Murray and Matt Katsky done in respect of the identification, it breaks all rules, all codes of conduct, any sort of decent policing whatsoever. Like on that alone, and it was on CCTV, it was on camera to see. It was recorded by Katsky. Like Matt Katsky's a Homeland Security agent. He knows you can't do an identification like that. There must be at least 3, 6, 8 photographs. Mm-hmm. There's 8 photographs. Who's the man that was at the bar? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They never asked him to describe Aaron Brady. Bobby Ogle was sitting asking some of the questions along with Murray. Ogle done a lot of this because it was totally set up. You could see it. It was as clear. And the reason why we showed Sinn Féin councillor Anton Waters, during the course of a statement, to give his statement some sort of validity. He gives some details about his interactions with Councillor Waters while he lived here in Ireland. And we have checked out the paperwork with the relative sporting organisations, and the names don't appear. He's telling a tissue of lies. Now, I did approach Councillor Waters. He did agree to meet me, and then he withdrew that. And he sent me a very unpleasant text message saying, please don't contact me again. I can't help you any further. And Councillor Waters is fully aware he was used as a tool to give credence to a man who's a liar, a thief, and a man who is willing to sell his soul for $50,000 on a green card. Because he too, as we move forward, had serious issues. Christopher Morton was involved with the Community with Restorative Justice. I did mention it briefly earlier on. And it's a group here in Northern Ireland who brings perpetrators of crime face to face, sitting down, having a chat with those victims of crime. Needless to say, Morton, as I said before, was not a victim. He was a perpetrator. Christopher Morton was stealing from those he was working with. Christopher Morton was approached by members of an organisation in this area. The money he stole was taken off him, and he was asked to remove himself from the vicinity. And Pat Murray went on the Making of a Detective, and as you can see there, we've exposed it. I think I've created 16 videos in respect of those 4 podcasts to highlight the lies and nonsense Pat Murray. The narcissistic rhetoric from this man is undoubtedly unrivaled in An Garda Siochana. And I would ask anyone to listen. If you do have the facility to do so, please listen to it, or even watch our videos on us exposing the lies. He said he checked out the bona fides of this man, and he knew exactly what he was dealing with. Pat Murray on the phone, he could have rang Councillor, Sinn Féin Councillor, Councillor Waters. This man, Morton, has given us certain details about his interactions with yourself as a friend. And is that correct? And I think that would have solved that problem. When it was actually people who probably Councillor Waters may very well know who approached Mr. Morton before he left Ireland to sort out the problem of him stealing from those he was working with. Mm-hmm. So, and then we had a situation where Morton, and I am certain of this, I'll stand over this, I believe he tried to recruit our next gentleman. And this is just a timeline for this man here. The Morton, his interactions with the Homeland Security. Morton, and the important one is on the 30th of November 2017. Morton informed HSI Maguire had info. Morton had told Mary earlier about this. So, and Maguire gave the man we're going to move on to now, Maguire gave a statement to Gardas, Phillips and McGovern. So that is, and that's proof positive from the, that's from an official document that Morton informed the HSI that Maguire had information about Aaron Brady. And the next slide gives us some insight into our friend Anthony Maguire, first cousin of Christopher Morton. He was caught with 16 grams of cannabis, 165 grams, £30,000 worth of cocaine, ammunition and cash. And again, this man, Maguire, gave a statement to Mark Phillips, Senior Investigating Officer Mark Phillips. And then, as we moved closer to the time for the, we can't prove this for sure, but we do believe that once again, Homeland Security must, if we did get all the paperwork, Homeland Security raised the red flag again and said, we have a problem with another one of your witnesses, Mr. Phillips. He is an extradition warrant to Northern Ireland for cannabis, £30,000 worth of cocaine, £30,000 worth of cash, and ammunition. And in an affidavit put together by Aaron's legal team, Mark Phillips told us, he actually told us that he sat and discussed, I think the way he put it was, I'm not sure if I have it in the say, I have that much information. He sat and discussed Maguire's, he called it PSNI situation with Maguire. And lo and behold, Maguire was not extradited. He gave a statement, but the next we heard from Maguire was sent a letter to, but before I get to the letter, I'm just going to quickly just go to the next line. We can see his charge sheet here. And there's some interesting information on it. Cannabis, cocaine. Mr. Maguire provided a pre-prepared statement in which he said he had found the drugs in a jar containing the powder and ammunition in a hedge the week previously. However, he had earlier made an unsolicited comment to uniformed colleagues stating that he was holding the drugs for a gang from Dublin and that he had no other choice. Anthony Maguire was released and reported to public prosecution. So there's his possession class A, possession class B, possession class A, and ammunition. And this is very important as if we're looking for leverage on people. Shots were fired at Mr. Maguire's house on the 10th of November 2014. 3 spent shotgun cartridges were located. This was linked to drugs. However, no person was convicted in relation to this. So I think we have a situation here that Anthony Maguire sitting in America, he would be in no hurry home to have a chat with the men who fired 3 shots into his house and car. And this was the day, I think that was the day after Maguire left and absconded, left his girlfriend and children behind him and absconded to America. As we move on with Maguire's story, Anthony Gerard Maguire then sent a letter to the Irish authorities, Mark Phillips in particular. And this letter was definitely hidden from Aaron's defence team. And the letter was very fortuitously found by one of Aaron's junior counsel. Most of it was redacted, but there was just a solicitor's heading on it. That's all there was, the American lawyer. And we eventually got Graham and Phillips took responsibility now for the letter and not disclosing it to Aaron's defence team. And again, in some way, they tried to make some sort of an excuse that it wasn't relevant. And Judge Michael White was made fully aware of this letter. Now, this is a man, and this letter here, Judge White was fully aware of this. And this is what Anthony Gerard Maguire said in the letter. If we go to the next slide. I want nothing more to do with the Brady case. I was put under extreme duress to make this statement. So Anthony Gerard Maguire was, that letter was sent. And as I say, Phillips, Graham took responsibility for not disclosing it. And again, Judge Michael White was fully aware of this. On top of what happened to Molly Staunton, on top of what happened to Ronan Flynn and the tape, on top of Daniel Cahill's serious issues and viability as a reliable witness. And all this is there for Judge White to see, and yet it is the Brady family who the state is now looking at in respect of intimidation and duress on witnesses. So we can understand why they're doing it. They're trying to cover up, but we hope most sincerely that we can get subpoenas on all these people and get them and get the whole story out in front of the Irish public.
Yeah. It seems a lot of the people you're mentioning here, they had criminal pasts and they were compromised in some way, and therefore, you know, they could put the pressure on them, you'd imagine, to make a statement.
Yes.
Other than that, there's only Molly Staunton, there's issues with that, as you mentioned already. There's somebody else there in her ear the whole time, telling her to say what they wanted her to say. And as you said, Jimmy Flynn there, the tape from Belfast Airport. But yeah, everyone else that seemed to give a statement that had some dodgy past, basically.
Had serious issues. And again, and I have done numerous videos on this, and we do go into, I can't go in, I have given you some insight into some of the stories in the statements. They're totally fictitious. And I did forget to mention, and that slide's missing as well, I do apologise. Christopher Morton said he was in the Tombstone Barn that night and that he spoke to Aaron Brady. Aaron's sister, Lorraine, was in the pub that night, and a number of the Hughes family from the wedding. Aaron Brady was not in the Tombstone that night. Christopher Morton is a fucking liar. You are a liar, Christopher Morton, and you tried to coerce your cousin into telling lies. His story is a tissue of nonsense also. But I have broke them down in other videos. And we have Lorraine and number of people in the Hughes family who were in the Tombstone didn't see Aaron. And there's a number of people in the wedding party who state quite categorically, none of them seen Aaron until the following morning, the Sunday. There was an All-Ireland final replay, and they met Aaron in the Moriarty's. So Christopher Morton, you are a liar. You told lies to save yourself. We have text messages with a friend of Christopher Morton's. We can show them too. A friend of mine sent, what about your friend Morton getting money for telling lies on Brady? And he got, and the friend sent back, what did he get? He says he got at least 50,000. And the friend texts back, I knew he got something. I didn't know he got that much. So there's no ambiguity about any of this. There's no guessing. There's no getting away from it. It happened.
Yeah.
So we're just going to quickly look now at what happened. And this is, that's a blank. Yeah, that's my fault. Go on, next one. So County Down man extradited from the US appears in court on drugs charges. We're trying to get a little bit of information. Anthony Gerard Maguire was extradited on the 17th of January 2023 on foot of the charges we're after looking at, 30,000 pounds worth of cocaine and cash and the marijuana. So the Belfast Telegraph and a number of local papers carried this when it happened on the 17th of January up until about the 20th of January 2023. And I'll just read through. You can see here. Next slide, Stephen. County Down man appeared in court today to face drugs charges after being extradited from the US. Armagh Magistrates Court, sitting in Newry, heard that the 32-year-old Anthony Gerard Maguire had spent 4 months in a high security prison in New York while extradition proceedings were dealt with. A bench warrant was issued for Maguire from Bernard Park in Killeavy when he failed to appear in court in 2015 to answer bail in relation to 8 drugs charges. So it sits perfectly with all the information we've given you in respect of the extradition warrant and Maguire leaving the country. He faces 3 counts of having cocaine with intent to supply. Again, this is intent to supply. This is drug dealers we're dealing with. This is a man with 30,000 pounds worth of cocaine going to sell it in his local community. No matter what way you look at it, he wasn't going to do anything else with it. It's for sale and supply. And that's the people we have to look and deal with. Possessing can of intent to supply and simple possession of a Class B drug. Now, in these newspaper reports, and as we'll see now when we look at his charge sheet, we're just going to look at one of them now and the next. The ammunition has disappeared. And it has been put on hold. So this is just one of the... There's a whole litany. Again, it's something that can be found. He pleaded guilty. He was convicted. The Crown Court was imprisonment detention, determinate. And this is the bit I can't understand, or we can't understand. The court haven't taken into account the defendant's early plea of guilty. Holy good God, he absconded nearly 10 years ago. Where now I know when he was taken home he pleaded guilty because he had already been found guilty actually in his absence back in 2014 into early 2015. So and he was sentenced, and would you believe, I think that's at the end of June, and by the 13th of July 2023, the year of our Lord, Anthony Gerard Maguire is back in the United States of America. Go figure.
There you go.
There you go. So they didn't want Mr. Maguire on this island. I think it's as simple as that. So we move on to the next gentleman. Let's see, have you 47 in there? Is that what I asked you to put forward?
Sorry.
Is that it there?
Yeah.
Would you believe I don't have it up now? This is Matt Flaherty. This is the man that Aaron worked with when he moved to America first in Boston. Matt Flaherty was, unfortunately, the man had drug and alcohol problems. And Eugene Flynn and James Flynn, he gave a statement to Homeland Security. You'll see it in this little text piece here from a video. James Flynn and Eugene Flynn recorded him on the phone. And again, it's something we've released on Aaron's social media pages. So this full video, unedited, is on Aaron's pages. So this is Matt Flaherty. We knew he gave statements, and Eugene and James were back in America. They met him on the street. They asked him, Matt, what's going on? Why did you give a statement against Brady? And this is some of what he said. I'll just read it out here quickly. They arrested me. They're saying to me, I'm harboring a murderer, a cop murderer. I'm going to court. I got busted for drugs. So we now know, and we do know, he was caught with a large amount of cocaine and a large amount of prescribed drugs. Not just the Drugs Enforcement Agency, the District Attorney, Homeland Security, State Police, FBI, and 2 Irish police. They forced me to say anything for no association with the IRA. I'm looking at 25 years in prison. I didn't know nothing anyway, because they pretty much read everything to me. Then I had to say, and I just signed it. Yes, I got off these charges. I had serious drugs charges. FBI said I am looking at 25 years for harbouring a known IRA member. I never even said Aaron said it. I told him I never talked to Aaron about it. And this is the people you're dealing with. You give my wife and kids a 1-month holiday, all expenses paid in Ireland, and I'll go. Now, I know I've been flipping about that. That's our son's lifestyle.
Yeah. And you said you have a recording of that interaction?
It's fully recorded, and it has been released on Aaron's page. And I think I've shown you these before, Stephen, when he talks there about the newspaper articles. This is what they were showing the people in New York. This is why the people in New York really believed that Aaron was the murderer. I hope that's not in reverse there, is it? Garda killer set to become a dad. And this was released on August the 29th, 2016. This is 6 months before Aaron was arrested in New York. Look. Let's see. I'm going the wrong way. I'm going wrong. There we go. US cops bust man who shot Adrian. And there it's quite clear to see. See, when I tilt that, you can see Aaron there quite clearly. It's pixelated, but you can nearly see him. So this is what they were showing the likes of Matt Katsky. Look. This is what we had to look at. And this one is dated August 29, 2016. Adrian's suspect's new life and girlfriend, family, and it says here family and dark about the mucky past. That's completely wrong. Now, there's Aaron there again. You can see him as clear as day. So this is how the media were used to do a hatchet job on Aaron. And this, obviously, they were showing these papers because Matt Katsky told us. And these papers were all over. There's another one. Adrian murderer suspect celebrates new baby. Yeah. Just as a point, Aaron was in jail. Donohoe more the suspects behind. He did even blame them for the ATM raids. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, and this is when, just see the date on this now. In 2000, see, this is what they got away with. Now, this one's very, very important. Garda killer arrested. And there's the picture of Aaron. And this is when Aaron was arrested in May 2019. Aaron came home, was tried and sentenced for wrecking the car in Dundalk, and then he was arrested for the murder of Detective Garda Adrian Donohoe in 2018. How is that fair? So can we understand what these people were doing? Yeah, there's loads of it. So that's how, and so as I say, everything we say falls into place and we can follow on, and it's like a jigsaw, it fits. So when we take that Matt Flaherty, and he says, he's telling the boys, he says, they showed me the newspaper and told me all about it. So it's all there in black and white. And I think the next screen just is some of the, I just highlighted what go back one, I think. Sorry, I might have. Yeah. I've just highlighted this. Harbouring, they said something about the IRA, no association with the IRA. I'm looking. So they told him that he was going to do 25 years in jail for harbouring a known IRA man. They read everything to me and I just signed it. They actually had me go and read an article in the newspaper that was back in your place, Ireland. I was going to court. I was busted for drugs. And obviously, Eugene Flynn and James Flynn, he wasn't busted for drugs. He was walking around. He was drinking a Costa coffee in Boston. So, and that is the people that we were led to believe. We had Pat Murray on the primetime program again. I've torn this to shreds, telling people, people came forward. Nobody came forward. There's a bit of an issue with Christopher Morton, but we know Morton is a downright damn liar. He came forward to preserve his own life in the United States of America because he is persona non gratis. I may be wrong, and Mr. Morton can contradict me or rebut me if I'm wrong. He wasn't even able to come home for his mother's funeral. So that's what we've been told. It's like that. We have loads of information and little snippets like that. But as far as we know, he wasn't able to come home for his parents' funerals. And that's the caliber of people we have to look at and deal with and look at each and every day when we go through Aaron's stuff. And these are the people. And they didn't come to court because, well, Matthew Flaherty couldn't have come to court. He wanted a holiday for his wife in Ireland. But, and he was witness number 66. Like, these people were in the first book of evidence. Witness 60. And Daniel Cahill was not a witness. And we're going to see why. If you want to run through intimidation, I can do it quickly.
We can do it quickly, or we can come back. Have we all these slides done?
No. That's just more of the Matt Katsky tape. They're just in underneath that I didn't.
Yeah. Well, look,
just take that one down. But I don't really care. But everyone in the world is connected. That'd be interesting. Members of AGS will like that slide. I didn't know that was there.
All right. Okay.
You can have a look at it after. It shows the connection between certain people. Right, well, it's there. It's public knowledge, but it's just something. It's just something we're working on, Stephen. But it might give food for thought for those in the DPP office and in Fort Apache, Dundalk.
Yeah.
So
look, it's 5 to 10, Tony. I mean, I don't want to rush you through the intimidation.
No, and I would like to. Yeah, I would like to do it again. And we actually are sort of going to go over again a lot of what we've seen, and it was actually the authorities that was doing are guilty of the intimidation. And I would like to maybe run with it next week, and I would maybe get a chance to put a bit more time in it, because it was a bit time consuming putting these together, because I have everything everywhere. I'm not well, I know where everything is, but I can takes a little while to gather it all together and correlate it correctly. So these are the people we had to deal with, and I will say once again, I think it's very, very important for us to reiterate it. If we thought Aaron had anything to do with it, we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be calling these people out if they were able to stand up for themselves. If there was anyone, no one in the mainstream media has stood up and has even reported that the Brady family are calling Christopher Morton a liar. The Brady family have highlighted a potential witness, had drugs issues, and was extradited.
Not a word.
Not a word. And we've been doing this now since September 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you said to me before, when I attended that presentation back in, was it August, September?
September 2020, I think.
2020, that 2-hour presentation you give, and as you said to me the last time we spoke a few days ago, nothing has changed.
No.
Not one thing has changed. You've just added to that.
Yes.
So your story is solid. There's so many discrepancies in this whole case. It's amazing that they got a conviction. It's very difficult, obviously, for your family, and I just wish you all the best now with this appeal. And is there any way to know when there's going to be any word, any judgment with this appeal?
No. I don't think there's any legal obligation for the judges to give us a date, or give Aaron a date. More importantly than anything else, give Aaron a date. I would be slightly concerned about the timing of this trial on April the 8th.
Tell us a little bit about that, Tony. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the intimidation cases. It's in relation to Ronan's video that was released on social media sites. And we'll show how that actual event was completely detrimental to Aaron's case. The releasing of that onto the social media site was of no benefit, or it wasn't, the Bradys could not have done it to intimidate anyone, because Ronan had actually spoken to the Aaron's legal team 10 days before that. And it would have, because the authorities would have been fully aware of the investigations we were doing, because we are fully aware that these people were telling lies. And I think when you're aware people are telling lies about your son, you're entitled to question that. And they would have known that we had all the information. And even during the course of Ronan's interview, he gets all the information wrong. And you can actually see him. I think he's asking Mark Phillips, "Isn't that right? The stole a BMW, isn't that right?" And you can see Inspector Phillips. I think this is the bit that was released. I never watched them. I went into panic mode when I seen they were released. But you can see Phillips grinding his teeth, saying, "Well, I can't really answer that for you, Ronan. That's, you have to tell us." So obviously Ronan's debrief didn't go that well. He got a lot of the stuff wrong. Right. They said he stole the BMW instead of the Passat.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is what, and there was a lot more to it than that. And then they realised that Ronan was one of the witnesses to Daniel Cahill and his friends attacking Aaron. It's a very tangled, and they couldn't have afforded, the Irish state could not have allowed Ronan Flynn into court. But I would hope now that he will be either taken by the Irish authorities or subpoenaed to appear in the intimidation case. Because, again, very important to point out, nobody, no person, no one person, no group of persons, or no group has lodged a complaint against Aaron Brady or the Brady family.
Yeah, there you go.
No, this is only the DPP creating excuse the language, a shit show to further their end and try and create a false narrative again and a different story.
Yeah. And what stage is that? I mean, is that in for a hearing on that date, or is that just the start? Is information?
No, it's the start. It's supposed to be the start of the trial on the 8th of April, and as far as I know, there's 3 months allowed for it.
So, I mean, is it a case where you go in like it's the very start, like you have to enter a plea, you have to look for evidence, all that?
Yes, yeah, and I think only in the last few days, the Aaron's legal team has got what they call the final book of evidence, but we'll be able to highlight it now. We know all the tricks of the trade now, and more importantly, we'll know what's missing. And as we've spoken with our legal team, it's not the people that's in the book of evidence that's important. Aaron's case, it's the people who are not in it. So they will have to be summoned.
Yeah. All right, Tony. Well, I look forward to. Is that on in the CCJ in Dublin?
It is indeed, yes. On the Monday, the 8th of April. So it's back after recess.
Lovely. Okay. Well, I hope to see you there. I'll see you before that again, though. We'll do one of these maybe next week, and you can give us a little bit more detail on these intimidation allegations.
Yes, that would be very welcome. Yeah, brilliant.
All right, Tony. Listen, thanks again, and very best wishes with your campaign, and all the best to Aaron as well and your family.
And once again, Stephen, thanks for the platform, and thank you to all the viewers. Thank you for all your messages. Please continue to follow Aaron's campaign and spread the word, like, comment, and share. We're being very, very, very seriously shadow banned and banned. None of our stuff's getting out.
Well, we're not much honest, so.
Yeah, I think you got hit too after Tuesday night. It looks like girls are saying you've been subdued. Your site's been subdued in some way. The numbers
are locked down.
Yeah, I think at some stage on ours there in the last day or two, 78 likes and 69 views. So there's more. So you can see what they're at with the numbers. So please, to public, again, if you like, comment and share Aaron's platform or social media sites, or indeed anything we do at the Irish Inquiry, we're not asking you to shout up and down and say Aaron's innocent. What we are looking to bring forward is the request for the whole story, and then we will see what happens. But we know the outcome if it was an even playing field. Once again, thank you so much, Stephen, for the platform, and we'll talk again next week whenever suits yourself.
Good man. Take care.
Take care. Good night. Thanks, Stephen. Thank
you. Okay, folks. Just so you can see there at the bottom, I have a YouTube channel there for Aaron Brady's campaign. YouTube/@Justice for Aaron Brady 755. So please get over there and maybe follow their YouTube channel, and keep an eye on the case. If anyone's in Dublin, that's the 8th of April in the CCJ. And this is a case being taken against the Brady family for allegedly intimidating witnesses, which they obviously deny. And we'll be back sometime next week with some more information about that prior to the case on the 8th of April. So thanks to everyone again for joining, and we'll talk to you all soon. All the best.